Okay, so the next step in this is going to be to assemble our tree. So just start a new file in Max and make a plane. It doesn't really matter too much what size you make it at the moment. Let's make it 1 meter by 1 meter. Just make sure that it's a square, so it's exactly 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 or whatever. Then we can put our texture onto that, and let's just put the alpha onto that. So maps, move the diffuse into the opacity, and then just change the opacity output to alpha. Okay. Okay, let's convert that to an editable poly. And then what we want to do is we just want to cut out this into our 3 separate branches. So the way that's set up, this texture means that this should be fairly easy to do. So if I go to my top view, I can just use a couple of swift loops for now. Right, and if I go to vertex mode and I turn on preserve UVs, and then I can just move these vertices around a little bit without kind of skewing the image. So I'll just move them until I've cut these areas out. That I can probably target well to there, to there. Oops. So yeah, that will happen sometimes, which is annoying. In fact, I can just delete that. That one needs to move across a little bit. And that can go now. Okay, I think that's it. So I can take this and then detach it, and then I can take those two and detach those as well. I'll just center the pivots on these as well. Okay, so there are our 3 branches separated, and now we can work on this one a bit. So let's just see if we can get rid of that point. Probably can. Okay, so something that you want to be careful about when you're creating these branches is we want to get rid of as much of this empty space here as we can, because this space is it's just going to create overdraw and it's going to slow the game down. So there's a trade-off basically between adding more verts. So obviously I can add a loop down there, and then I could use that loop to cut out this space. And there's a trade-off between adding more verts to cut the space out and having less verts but having more blank space. We want to have some extra verts in this because we want to be able to kind of bend this round and make it a more interesting shape, a bit like we did with the leaves when we first started. So we can definitely add some extra loops into here, and that'll help us get rid of some of the empty space. Let's have another one in there. Okay, this looks not too bad. I might have another loop in there as well. Actually, I can just get rid of that vert. Okay, so that looks okay for the moment. And so I'm not just adding these verts simply for the sake of I'm not adding them simply so I can shape it around here. I'm adding them as well so that I can bend this. So I can do that now. Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an FFD on this. You can use a bend modifier or something if you want as well. Either, whatever way is fine. And I think what I'm going to do is try and pull these verts up a little bit. Go up a bit. So I'm just trying to sort of bend it round and make it look a little bit more interesting. And this will make it look a bit more three-dimensional, because when I look at it from the side now, I won't see just a complete, if I look at this object here from the side, obviously you basically can't see it because you completely side onto it, whereas if I look at this from the side now, I will start to see something. So I'm just going to mess with my FFD until I think I've got that working how I want it. Okay, and then I will bend it a bit this way as well, so maybe just bring it up at the top like that. I think that's okay. You can always just grab the verts as well if that's easier. Just make sure preserve UVs is off now. And then you can just move those to where you want them. Okay, that'll do for now. So just sort out the rest of your the other two of these now. And do the same sort of thing with them. Try and cut them out a little bit around the shape of the leaves, leaving, within reason, leaving as little empty space as you can, and then just bend them into sort of bent planes as well. Okay, so I've done that with these three meshes now, and like I said, just be careful. Try and cut as much of the empty space out as you possibly can, because it will increase the performance quite a lot if you do that. So I've tried to be quite exact with how I've done that. Actually, that just looks a little bit warped there. That's better. That one can probably come in. Let's not make that. Okay, anyway, that'll do, I think. So it's arguable, with something like this, you could argue that it might be better for me to add an extra loop in there so that I can get rid of some more of this space. You'd have to do some testing with that. Ideally, it's something that the guys from CryTech would know best. The people at sort of programmed the engine, really. But let's say that's fine. Let's just move these off to the side now and create a copy of them. So I'm just creating a copy of them again because I just want to make sure that if I do anything wrong, I've got a copy of them to go back to. The next thing I want to do is, again, it's going to make my life easier, is going to be if I set the pivots of these to the base. So just get them exactly on there, like that. Okay, so just set your pivots, try and get it as exact as you can. Oops. Okay, so do that. Okay, so my pivots are all at the base of my objects now, and this might be a good time just to grab all of these and reset the X form. I don't think we need to, but it's always worth resetting your X form every now and again. Particularly when you move, like, you know, once you've shaped something up a bit and you've moved the pivot and that sort of thing. Right, what I'm going to do now is, in fact, I'll delete those. I'll make a copy of these because I might as well have my copy with the ones that have got the pivots in the right place. So now I'm going to try and compile a little branch together. So I'm going to take that large one and let's get the grid off. What I'll do is I'll take this smaller one as well, and then arrange that somehow to fit on to this one, so as though it's kind of growing out of it like that. And I'll try and make them all sort of fan out, if that makes sense. So rather than it pointing this way and pointing back in, everything's kind of pointing away, bending away from the base. So take one of those, and then I'll have another copy of that. And let's scale this one down a bit. And move it off here somewhere, and then move it up. Okay, that looks alright. So I'll make a few of these, a few variations of these. I might add a little bit more to that actually. So yeah, make maybe, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 little versions of these, kind of all composited together. Okay, so I've finished arranging my branches together. So I've just got, I think I've got about 5 of these, and I've just arranged them. It doesn't matter how you arrange them, but I've just kind of, I've got quite a dense one here, and then they get a little bit more sparse as they go along until you just get these ones that are just kind of not dead, but you know, they're not as thriving, I guess, as these are. Right, so what I want to do now is attach all of this together. So if I just isolate that, grab that one, and then just do attach list, Control A to select all, attach. So yeah, if you attach from this one that's kind of at the base, and then that way the pivot will stay at the base. So my pivot's still in the correct position for all of this thing now. Okay, there we go. So again, what I might do now is just save my documents, and I'll create a copy of these and stick them over there somewhere. So actually I can put all this onto a new layer as well. So just create a new layer, and bits, and put all that stuff into there and hide that. Just make sure that I'm back on that layer. Okay. So I've just got these visible, and like I say, the pivots are all in the correct place, or should be. If they're not, just make sure, absolutely sure that they are. And now we can start making the trunk of the tree. Okay, so this is obviously another good time to make sure that you have some reference in front of you for exactly how you want to make this tree look. I could use something like this. In a way this is quite useful because the leaves are dying a bit, so you can see the shape of the trunk a little bit more easily. But just get some reference for whatever it is that you want. And then you can start making that. So that's another piece of reference there. Got some more trees and stuff in here somewhere. So I might use this one actually. But just put that off to one side. That's just for you to use as you're building your trunk up. What you want to do is you want to make the tree with off with splines. We want to build it out with splines. So if we go to the create panel and go to shapes and align, and then we can just start drawing in the shape of this trunk. So just click and move and click and move. It's as simple as that. And then I can draw another line coming off that. So just keep on going and building that. You'll notice that you're only kind of building in 2 dimensions at the moment. I might have got a really weird angle. I'll do that again. But just build the shape of your trunk. What you'll have to do is, once you've drawn it out like that, you'll have to come into the other side, into a side view, and start to arrange the branches in that way as well. So I don't quite know why that went off at a funny angle. I must have not been on my front view. But just build your lines. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so when you finish that, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. So it's just a load of lines, basically, and just try and make sure that you match them up as well as you can. So that one just needs to be coming out there. We can always move these a little bit later. But yeah, you should have something like that. Right, so I'm just going to move those off to the side again. Okay, so the next step is to basically just extrude a cylinder up these splines. So to do that, I'm just going to create a cylinder. So cylinder, doesn't really matter how you create that at the moment, just make a cylinder of some description. And then what we want to do is we want to put a path deform modifier on it. So this one here under world space modifiers, path deform, there. And then we can do pick path and then click on the path that we wanted to follow. So in this case it's going to be that cylinder, and you'll see it makes a big mess in the corner. If you click move to path, it should then move to that path. So we can then just go back down to our cylinder primitive, and we can alter the radius. We can alter the height so that it goes all the way to the top. Oops. Like that, and then we can add in some height segments so that it follows that nicely. We'll want to go through and optimise this a bit further at the end. We can also put a taper modifier in between the two. So we've got cylinder, taper, path deform, and with that taper modifier we can just make it taper in a bit. We might want to add a little bit of a curve as well. Something like that. Okay, so that's that one done. Then all we have to do is shift drag anywhere, and then we can just do pick path and move to the next path, and then we'll get that. And then again go to our cylinder modifier. One thing I should say is, so I think for this main trunk, I think with our cylinder 18 sides is going to be okay. With this one, as we move up the tree, we want to change the amount of sides that we've got. So if I copy this one now and pick path and go right to that one at the top and move to path, then let's just set that one up. Let's move the height down. Get rid of a load of those height segments at the top there. So this is probably alright with 5 sides, I'd say, right at the top. It's going to be hard to see it, and if you're playing this in first person, you know that's quite high up and away from you. 5 sides should be enough at the top. Even potentially 3 sides could be enough, depending on how much you want to optimise this. But just go through now and just fill that out. Try and use as few sides as you can, obviously. So do that. Right, so when you've done that, you should have something like this. So there's still some cleanup we need to do on this at some point, like areas like this. We also will need to go through and actually delete all of these polys on the bottom, but we won't do any of that until we're finished and we've got this kind of pretty much done. So the next step is to put the branches onto the or put these kind of leafy branches onto the big main branches off this tree. Let me just reduce the radius of that. So you can see the way that this is set up, it's all kind of modular, and we can still change that at any time. So I'll just increase the size of these branches until they're actually going to match up with the size of the tree, because at the moment they're a bit small. And then what I can do is I can just take a branch, and providing my pivot is in the correct position, I should be able to go to animation, constraints, path constraints, and then I can constrain it to just move along one of those splines that we drew. So then it's just a case of rotating it a bit, moving it into the correct position, and then I can just shift and drag and create a copy of this. Okay, one thing that I want to do before I do that is just check if I go back. Right, when I create a copy of this, I want to make sure that I create this copy as an instance. That'll help when we're creating our LODs, so the level of detail, the lower level of detail for the tree when it's in the distance. It means that I can just alter this, so I can maybe remove some of these edges in here, and so on, and the same thing will happen to that one. So I'll put those back in. You can see as I'm altering that, this one's altering as well. Yeah, so I'll create that as an instance, and then I can animation, constraints, path constraint, constraints that path, move it along. And just position it. And once I'm happy with that, I can drag it down a bit and position another one. So obviously I need to bear in mind as well that I've got, this is just one of a lot of different versions of this I've got, so I don't want to copy too many of them around in the same place. But by rotating them a bit and scaling them, you can get quite a lot of use out of just one anyway, if you need to. Okay, so it's just a case of going through and filling my tree out with these completely. So maybe I'll get one of these now, create a copy of that again as an instance, and then animation, constraints, path constraints. This one can go in the middle. So yeah, that's it really. It's just a case of going through. Obviously this is, again, it's quite a time consuming part of this process. But yeah, I'll pause this and I'll go through and I'll do that. Okay, so once you've scattered all of those over the tree, you should get something like this, and we're pretty much done. Don't worry about the fact that it doesn't look too great in 3ds Max, because once we bring it into CryEngine and we use the shaders in CryEngine, we'll get rid of all of these, the look of a lot of these ugly planes and the weird sort of shadows and stuff on them. Okay, so what we probably do want to do now is to sort out a bark texture for our tree. We could also, it's not a bad time just to, in fact something that would have been a good idea to do earlier would have been to grab all of these cylinders and just put them on their own layer so that you can easily get at them. So I'll just do that. Okay, so they're all on their own layer now, so I can just hide that on and off. What I'll do is I'll just have that. I'll just have this one visible, and now I just need to go through and basically do some optimization. So what I need to do is I need to collapse this stack now. And in order to do that, so normally you would go collapse and collapse all, but I'm not sure why it does this, but the path deform will stay on top if you do that. So you just need to right click and go collapse to, and then it will collapse it down. So I'll just go through and collapse all. Okay, so they're all collapsed now, and what I can do is I just need to go through and start optimizing. So this is looking a bit weird, so I'm just going to bring those out a bit. What I can do is I can probably just get the ends of these and collapse them. So just right click and collapse. I can probably get rid of a few verts that way. So just collapse all the ends of these. The other thing that I need to do is I don't need that poly that's in there, so that one on the end. So I can delete all of those. I can also go through and have a look at all of the edge loops. So that one looks okay. So does that one, and so does that. Find a good example. Okay, so here, there's probably no need to have those. There's no need to have that loop really. I can get rid of that. So any loops that aren't sort of adding too much to the shape, you can just go through and get rid of. It's just a case of cutting it down as much as you can, really. Okay, so once you've gone through and optimised a bit, I'm going to leave that for now for this, just because I want to show the rest of the process. You want to unwrap all of these trunks and branches. So if you put an unwrap on, you should find that basically they're already unwrapped, because it's just a cylinder, so it should just be unwrapped with a cylinder unwrap on it already. So all you need to do is to go in and select everything and just relax it. If you relax it by edge angles, it should just relax out. Like that. Let's just relax it by poly angles as well. So you should be able to get it, you should be able to unwrap it pretty fast, basically. They should be detached. I don't know why they're not. In fact, I should have just deleted these anyway, the caps off them. So, but yeah, you can go through and you should very quickly be able to unwrap everything, and then you can just find a bark texture and put that on. So I'll just do that. Again, this is a time when you want those references, images, so that you know exactly what kind of bark it is that you're looking for. Okay, so once I've found a texture that I'm happy with, and obviously I need to do the unwrap, then it's just a case of scaling that up until it's about the right size. So there, I'd say something like that. And then I need to go through and do that for all of these. So I just need to put an unwrap on, relax them, and that should be pretty much it. Okay, so that's the tree unwrapped. It shouldn't take more than sort of 10 minutes or so to do that, to unwrap this bark bit. So I can put my leaves back on, and it's not looking too bad now. I can hide those shapes, which is in there. Let's just hide the shapes. Okay, we're nearly there. The last thing that we need to do is just attach all of this together, and then we can put it into CryEngine. So again, I'm just going to get the trunk bit, and I'm just going to go through and attach everything together. So you can just use attach list if you want, or just click on all of them, whatever's easiest. Okay, so that's that one done, and I'll do the same with the leaves. Okay, so what you'll find with the leaves is that they're a bit difficult to work with. For example, if I was to grab all of these and I was to attach them together, then that'll happen. And the reason that that's happening is because of the path constraint. So there's probably a more elegant solution to this than the way that I'm going to do it. But the easiest way that I've found to get around that, so that these are just kind of back to normal objects, is just to export them and then import them. So if I grab all of them, and for one thing I'll just put them on a new layer so that I can hide it if I need to, and call it leaves. Just make sure that they're on there, and then I'll go back to my default layer. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of them, and I'm going to do File, Export Selected. I'm going to export them as an OBJ. So just set that up as normal, export them as polys, export. Done. Okay, and then I can do well, I can hide those now off my layer, and then I can do File, Import that back in. And when I import them, they're going to have the same name, so I'm just going to have to click through OK on every one of those, which is a bit of a pain. Okay, and now they should be imported kind of as you would expect. So now I can get one of them, and I can do an attach and get them all just into one big object like that. Okay, so now if I put my trunk back in, they should all be still in the same place. All I need to do is go and put the correct material on with that alpha on. Okay, so now we're back to where we were, except now we've got one object that's all of the leaves, and one object that is all of the trunk parts. So the final thing we need to do now is just to put this into, well, again, to save this, let's just make a copy of this as well. Sorry, I'm just sorting out my layers a bit. Right, so I've just got a copy of this on its own layer now, and I can attach this together now, so I can attach that to that, and I want to keep my material IDs as they are, or rather match them up. And the last thing to do will be to set the pivot to the right place. So in there somewhere, do actually with just grabbing these polys or these edges and just lining those up as well. And I'll move this back to 0, 0, 0 in the world. Okay, so that's it. I'll leave this video here now because it's been quite long. And then the last part of this will just be putting it into CryEngine and setting it all up.